At night, when cities grow quiet and the sky darkens, the same question has followed humanity for centuries. It appears not as a demand for answers, but as a quiet thought, almost a whisper, carried by the stars above. For as long as humans have looked upward, the sky has represented both certainty and mystery. The movements of the sun and moon brought order to time, while distant lights beyond them remained unreachable, silent, and unknown. In the modern world, we often forget how vast the universe truly is. Yet beyond the thin layer of Earth's atmosphere lies a space so immense that even our fastest probes have only begun to touch its edges. Billions of galaxies, trillions of stars, countless worlds, most still unseen. And within that vastness, one question quietly persists. Are we alone in the universe? This documentary does not attempt to answer that question directly. Instead, it explores a related and more grounded mystery, one that exists not in distant galaxies, but in our own skies. The term UFO, or unidentified flying object, does not describe alien spacecraft. It simply refers to something observed in the sky that cannot be immediately identified by the person who sees it. In recent years, the term UAP, or Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon, has been used for the same purpose. These labels describe uncertainty, not conclusions. Throughout history, people from different cultures and eras have reported seeing objects or lights in the sky that defied explanation at the time. Some were later understood as natural phenomena. Others were revealed to be human technology. And some remain unresolved, not because they defy science, but because information was incomplete. This film approaches the subject carefully and without sensationalism. It examines historical records, official investigations, and well-documented cases, placing each within its cultural and scientific context. There are no claims here of hidden truths or secret knowledge. Only a calm examination of what has been observed, what has been explained, and what remains uncertain. Because sometimes the most honest answer science can give is not certainty, but silence, followed by continued observation. And so we begin where the mystery itself begins, with the human tendency to look upward and to wonder. If you'd like, feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Long before the modern world developed scientific instruments or controlled flight, people still watched the sky closely. For ancient civilizations, the heavens were not distant or abstract. They were immediate, powerful, and deeply connected to daily life. Across different cultures, unusual sights in the sky were recorded in stone, paint, and written chronicles. Some appear in cave paintings whose meanings are still debated. Others survive in ancient texts describing lights, shapes, or movements that observers struggled to explain with the knowledge available to them. It is important to approach these accounts carefully. Ancient observers did not share modern concepts of astronomy, physics, or atmospheric science. What they witnessed was interpreted through mythology, religion, and symbolism. In Mesopotamia, celestial events were often seen as messages from the gods. In ancient China, court astronomers meticulously recorded strange phenomena in the sky, believing they reflected harmony or imbalance within the empire. Greek and Roman writers described fiery objects, glowing shields, and sudden lights crossing the heavens, often linking them to omens rather than physical causes. During the Middle Ages, the sky remained a source of both fear and wonder. European chronicles speak of signs appearing above cities, glowing crosses, flaming spheres, or moving lights seen during times of war or plague. To the people of the time, these were not unidentified objects, but warnings or symbols charged with meaning. Modern readers must be cautious not to project contemporary ideas backward onto these accounts. Most descriptions are brief, subjective, and shaped by belief systems very different from our own. Many can likely be explained today as comets, meteors, atmospheric halos, or rare optical effects. Yet these records remain valuable, not because they prove the presence of unknown craft, but because they reveal a consistent human response to the unexplained. Across centuries and civilizations, people have noticed unusual phenomena in the sky and struggled to describe them using the language and understanding of their time. The boundary between myth, symbol, and observation was often unclear. What mattered most was not what the phenomenon truly was, but how it was understood within its cultural context. Only much later would technology and science begin to shift that boundary, transforming ancient wonder into modern investigation. That shift would come suddenly in the middle of the 20th century. The modern history of UFOs is often traced back to a single moment in the summer of 1947. It was a period marked by deep global tension. The Second World War had ended only 2 years earlier, and the world was entering a new and uncertain era shaped by nuclear weapons, advanced aircraft, and the beginning of the Cold War. On June 24, 1947, an American businessman and private pilot named Kenneth Arnold was flying near Mount Rainier in Washington state. While searching for a missing aircraft, Arnold reported seeing a formation of 9 unusual objects moving rapidly across the sky. According to his description, the objects appeared bright and metallic, flying in an uneven line. What drew particular attention was their motion. Arnold later said they moved like a saucer skipping across water, a phrase that would soon take on a life of its own. Arnold estimated the objects were traveling at an extraordinary speed, far faster than any known aircraft of the time. He could not identify them as planes, birds, or atmospheric effects. After landing, he reported the sighting to local authorities and journalists. Within days, newspapers across the United States picked up the story. In the process of retelling it, Arnold's description of movement was simplified into a physical shape. The phrase flying saucer was born, not from Arnold himself, but from the way his words were interpreted and repeated. The reaction was immediate and widespread. Across the country, reports of similar sightings began to appear. People described discs, crescents, spheres, and lights in the sky. Some reports came from civilians, others came from pilots, weather observers, and military personnel. It is difficult to determine how many of these reports were independent observations and how many were influenced by growing media attention. What is clear is that 1947 marked a turning point. For the first time, unexplained aerial sightings were no longer isolated curiosities. They became a shared cultural phenomenon. The timing was significant. Advances in aviation during the war had exposed the public to experimental aircraft, secret testing programs, and unfamiliar silhouettes in the sky. At the same time, fear of foreign technology, particularly from the Soviet Union, was widespread. In this environment, uncertainty was fertile ground. The United States military took notice. While many early reports were dismissed as misidentified aircraft, weather balloons, or natural phenomena, officials recognized that unexplained sightings could not be ignored entirely, especially if they involved restricted airspace. The modern UFO phenomenon did not begin as a search for extraterrestrial life. It began as a question of identification, security, and perception. What were people seeing? Why were so many reports appearing at once? And how much of this wave was driven by observation and how much by expectation? These questions would soon move from newspapers into official files, and only weeks later, another incident would take place, one that would come to define the UFO mystery for decades to come. In July of 1947, just weeks after Kenneth Arnold's sighting in Washington state, another event captured the nation's attention and would become one of the most famous incidents in the history of UFOs, the Roswell incident. Located in southeastern New Mexico, Roswell was a quiet town, surrounded by deserts, ranches, and military testing grounds. On July 8th, the local Roswell Army Airfield issued a press release stating that personnel had recovered a flying disc from a nearby ranch. The statement quickly sparked curiosity, excitement, and speculation. Within hours, the Army clarified its announcement, saying that the debris was actually from a weather balloon. Official reports described scattered materials of foil, rubber, and sticks associated with Project Mogul, a classified program using high-altitude balloons to detect Soviet nuclear tests. Despite the correction, the initial headline, "Flying Disc Recovered," had already entered public consciousness. Over the following decades, Roswell would evolve into a symbol not just of unexplained aerial phenomena, but of secrecy, mistrust, and the possibility of life beyond Earth. Books, documentaries, and interviews repeatedly revisited the event, often highlighting conflicting accounts from military personnel and civilians. It is important to note what can be stated objectively. The incident involved the recovery of debris on a ranch, observed by locals and initially described as unusual. The U.S. military issued contradictory statements over a short period. Later, decades after the fact, reports emerged of additional claims, including alleged alien bodies which have not been independently verified. What makes Roswell historically significant is not the verification of extraterrestrial activity, but the cultural and social impact of the event. It marked the beginning of a widespread awareness that unexplained phenomena in the sky could attract intense public and media attention. It also highlighted the role of secrecy and classification during the early Cold War period. In many ways, Roswell represents the intersection of observation, interpretation, and the social context of the time. Beyond the media and speculation, researchers have identified multiple factors that contributed to the story's endurance. Project Mogul itself remained classified for decades, and the lack of public information created space for alternative explanations. Witness testimony, while valuable for historical records, often conflicts with other accounts and must be examined critically. Even today, Roswell continues to inspire debate and interest. It illustrates a fundamental aspect of human experience. When confronted with the unknown, people seek to explain, imagine, and sometimes embellish. The case demonstrates how an event, however ordinary it may have been in material terms, can acquire extraordinary significance over time. From a historical perspective, Roswell is neither proof nor disproof of alien visitation. It is, however, a landmark moment in the modern story of UFOs, showing how observation, reporting, and public perception can converge to create lasting cultural phenomena. The Roswell incident also established a pattern that would repeat in future reports: an initial observation, a rapid official explanation, followed by enduring questions and speculation. This sequence, familiar to those who study UFO history, illustrates the persistent tension between what is seen, what is reported, and what is officially acknowledged. By examining Roswell carefully and objectively, we gain insight not only into a single event, but into the way societies respond to the unexplained, balancing evidence, authority, and imagination. The incident set the stage for government investigations, widespread reporting, and the continuing fascination with objects that cannot easily be explained. And so, from a quiet desert in New Mexico, a narrative began, one that would influence popular culture, scientific inquiry, and public perception for decades to come. Following the early wave of UFO reports in 1947, including the widely publicized Roswell incident, governments around the world began to take note of the phenomenon. In the United States, concern was not only about unexplained sightings, but also about national security. The post-war era had introduced rapid advancements in aviation technology, and the potential for foreign aircraft or reconnaissance operations was a real worry for military planners. To address these concerns, the U.S. Air Force initiated a series of investigative projects. The first, known as Project Sign, began in late 1947. Its purpose was to collect, document, and analyze reports of unidentified flying objects. Project Sign gathered over 800 reports from ordinary citizens to pilots and military personnel and compiled them into a central archive. In 1949, Project Sign was succeeded by Project Grudge, which shifted the focus from collection to evaluation. While many sightings were quickly identified as weather balloons, aircraft, or natural phenomena, a small number remained unexplained. Despite the unresolved cases, Project Grudge emphasized a skeptical tone, concluding that UFO reports were often the result of misinterpretation or psychological factors. In 1952, Project Blue Book was established, representing the most comprehensive and systematic government investigation into UFOs during the 20th century. Operating until 1969, Project Blue Book collected more than 12,000 reports. Each report was carefully examined, classified, and either explained or designated as unidentified. Of these, approximately 700 cases were ultimately categorized as unidentified, though none provided conclusive evidence of extraterrestrial origin. The work of these projects demonstrates a measured, methodical approach. Officials and scientists sought to understand what people were observing, to separate natural or human-made phenomena from cases that defied explanation. Reports were examined for reliability, with attention to witness credibility, environmental conditions, and technical data such as radar recordings or photographic evidence. Internationally, governments also monitored aerial phenomena. In the United Kingdom, the Ministry of Defense maintained files on UFO sightings, many reported by civilian pilots and military personnel. In the Soviet Union, similar efforts were documented, though most files remained classified or were released selectively. Other countries, including Canada, France, and Japan, kept systematic records, emphasizing that the phenomenon was not confined to any single nation or culture. One important pattern emerges from these investigations. While most sightings can be explained through conventional means, a small proportion consistently defy immediate identification. This does not imply alien visitation. Rather, it highlights the limitations of observational data, reporting accuracy, and contemporary scientific knowledge. Government investigations also reveal the social dynamics of UFO reporting. Classification, delayed disclosure, and secrecy contributed to public speculation. The tension between transparency and security created fertile ground for alternative narratives, some of which persist to this day. By examining these investigations objectively, several conclusions can be drawn. Governments treated UFOs as phenomena worthy of systematic study, primarily for security and scientific reasons. Most reports could be explained through known natural or human-made causes. A minority of cases remained unresolved. not due to negligence, but because the evidence was insufficient to form a definitive explanation. These projects and the official files they produced laid the foundation for future study and public interest. They also illustrate the careful balance between skepticism and open inquiry, a balance that continues to shape the way UFOs are investigated today. Through these historical investigations, it becomes clear that the story of UFOs is not solely a matter of extraordinary claims, but also a record of human observation, procedural rigor, and the challenges inherent in interpreting what we do not yet understand. While the majority of UFO reports can be explained through natural phenomena, human error, or technology, some cases stand out for their consistency, credibility, and lack of conventional explanation. These incidents have become known as the most mysterious sightings, not because they prove extraterrestrial visitation, but because they resist straightforward identification. One of the most well-documented cases occurred in Phoenix, Arizona in March 1997. Thousands of residents reported observing a series of lights moving silently in the night sky. Witnesses described the lights as arranged in a structured formation, often appearing as a V-shape or triangular pattern. Local authorities received numerous calls, and the event was covered by national media. Despite extensive investigation, no official explanation fully accounted for the scale and appearance of the lights. Some suggested flares from military exercises. Others noted that no conventional aircraft could match the observed behavior. The Phoenix lights remain one of the most widely reported and visually striking cases in modern UFO history. Another notable incident took place in Rendlesham Forest, England in December 1980. Over several nights, military personnel stationed at nearby bases reported seeing unusual lights moving through the forest. Some witnesses described metallic shapes on the ground, unusual radiation readings, and unexplained marks on trees. The case included multiple independent observers, including trained military staff, and remains classified among the United Kingdom's official UFO files. Explanations have ranged from misidentified lights from nearby towns to psychological phenomena, yet the combination of radar data, eyewitness accounts, and physical traces leaves the event partially unresolved. A third prominent series occurred during the Belgium UFO wave of 1989 to 1990. Thousands of sightings were reported, primarily by civilians and law enforcement officers, describing large, silent, triangular objects with lights at each corner. Some reports were corroborated by radar, while visual tracking often coincided with standard air traffic control observations. The Belgian Air Force conducted formal investigations, producing detailed reports that documented hundreds of sightings. Despite attempts to identify conventional aircraft, meteorological events, or hoaxes, some sightings remained unexplained, drawing attention from both scientists and international media. Across these cases, several common patterns emerge. Witnesses often describe structured formations or geometrically precise shapes. Movements tend to be smooth, silent, and seemingly intentional. Visual sightings frequently coincide with radar or other instrumental detection, though correlation is not always complete. And in each case, no single explanation fully accounts for all observed details. These patterns highlight the challenges inherent in UFO research. Even well-documented incidents can be difficult to verify conclusively due to the limits of observation, the variability of eyewitness perception, and the potential for unknown natural or human-made causes. Yet these reports are valuable because they represent a level of consistency and detail rarely found in ordinary sightings. The most mysterious cases do not provide proof of extraterrestrial origin, nor do they suggest any deliberate cover-up. Instead, they illustrate the persistent human encounter with the unexplained, the tension between observation and understanding, between documented evidence and the limitations of current knowledge. Studying these incidents within their historical and cultural context allows researchers to approach the phenomenon objectively. By comparing eyewitness accounts, radar data, and environmental conditions, analysts can separate probable explanations from genuine anomalies without drawing unsubstantiated conclusions. Ultimately, the most mysterious sightings serve as a reminder that the sky remains largely unexplored. Even with modern technology, high-resolution imaging, and global communication, unexplained aerial phenomena continue to challenge our assumptions about what is possible and what is known. They invite careful inquiry, not sensationalism, and they underscore a simple fact: that in the vastness of the skies above us, mysteries endure. In the decades following the initial UFO wave of the late 1940s, reports from trained observers, particularly pilots and military personnel, began to receive increasing attention. These accounts are notable not because they prove extraterrestrial origin, but because they come from individuals with experience in aviation and observation, often able to assess speed, altitude, and maneuvering capabilities with a level of expertise beyond the average civilian witness. Military pilots in the United States, as well as in other countries, have reported sightings of aerial objects exhibiting unusual characteristics. These include rapid acceleration and deceleration, abrupt changes in direction, and movement without visible propulsion systems. While radar contact often accompanies these reports, the correspondence between visual observation and instrument readings is not always complete, making interpretation difficult. One example comes from reports collected by the U.S. Navy and Air Force in the early 2000s. Pilots training in restricted airspace observed fast-moving, unknown objects while simultaneously recording them with infrared sensors. Videos released in later years showed blurred, fast-moving shapes, sometimes maneuvering in ways inconsistent with known aircraft technology. Although the objects remained officially unidentified, no evidence confirmed them as extraterrestrial. They could have been misidentified drones, experimental aircraft, or natural phenomena not fully understood at the time. Radar tracking adds an additional layer of verification. When objects are simultaneously observed visually and recorded on radar, analysts gain precise data on trajectory, speed, and altitude. In some cases, radar readings corroborated unusual movement patterns noted by witnesses, strengthening the credibility of the report. However, radar anomalies can occur due to equipment errors, atmospheric conditions, or reflections, which makes interpretation cautious and complex. In addition to formal investigations, civilian pilots and air traffic controllers have contributed reports. Incidents are often logged with detailed information on location, time, altitude, and environmental conditions, providing researchers with data for careful analysis. These reports show that unusual aerial phenomena are not limited to remote regions or isolated observers. They can occur in controlled, monitored airspace and be witnessed by multiple independent observers. Modern encounters illustrate several important points. First, unexplained sightings persist even with advanced technology. Second, trained observers do not necessarily claim alien origin, but they report phenomena that resist conventional explanation. Third, Official agencies increasingly acknowledge these reports while maintaining a neutral stance, focusing on documentation and safety rather than speculation. It is also important to recognize the limits of observation. Pilots operate under complex conditions, variable weather, changing lighting, and high speeds, which can affect perception. Even experienced observers can misinterpret reflections, atmospheric distortions, or unfamiliar aircraft as anomalous objects. Nevertheless, the consistency of certain reports suggests patterns worth studying. Objects with triangular shapes, silent movement, and abrupt directional changes appear repeatedly in multiple countries and decades. These patterns do not confirm extraterrestrial visitation, but they highlight areas where current knowledge and technology cannot fully account for the observation. Ultimately, the reports from pilots, combined with radar and instrument data, underscore the objective approach of modern investigation. They provide verifiable information while leaving room for uncertainty, a balance that reflects both scientific rigor and the enduring mystery of the sky. Through these accounts, it becomes clear that unidentified aerial phenomena are not confined to folklore or imagination. They are real, observed, and recorded. And while their nature remains unresolved, studying them responsibly advances our understanding of human perception, atmospheric science, and the challenges inherent in interpreting the unknown. As attention to UFO sightings grew, scientists and investigators sought to understand these reports through the lens of evidence, reason, and systematic observation. This approach emphasized skepticism, not dismissal. The goal was to explain phenomena using known principles before considering extraordinary possibilities. Many sightings, for example, can be attributed to astronomical and atmospheric phenomena. Bright planets, such as Venus or Jupiter, are commonly misidentified, especially when observed near the horizon or through atmospheric distortion. Meteors and bolides produce brief but intense streaks of light, sometimes described as fast-moving or maneuvering objects. Halos, sundogs, and lenticular clouds can create optical effects that appear structured or luminous, particularly in low light conditions. In addition to natural explanations, human-made technology plays a significant role. Aircraft, drones, satellites, and experimental vehicles often account for reports that initially seem unusual. During the Cold War, advanced reconnaissance aircraft and secret military projects introduced new shapes, speeds, and flight patterns into the skies which civilians and even some pilots could not immediately identify. Flares, pyrotechnics, and reflective debris from high-altitude experiments also produced sightings that were sometimes misinterpreted as anomalous craft. Psychology and human perception contribute further complexity. Observers are influenced by expectations, prior knowledge, and cultural context. A witness who has heard about flying saucers or recent UFO reports may interpret ambiguous lights or shapes as extraordinary. The brain seeks patterns and meaning, sometimes producing descriptions that exceed what was objectively present. Scientific investigations, such as those conducted by Project Blue Book, the Condon Committee, and contemporary studies, demonstrate that careful analysis can resolve most cases. Investigators compare witness testimony, radar data, photographic evidence, and environmental conditions. Many reports are found to be misidentifications, hoaxes, or sensor errors, yet a minority of incidents remain unexplained due to insufficient or ambiguous data. These cases do not imply extraterrestrial involvement. They simply indicate limits in observation, instrumentation, or documentation. Skepticism in this context is essential. It does not reject human experience. Rather, it encourages rigorous assessment. By questioning initial interpretations, scientists distinguish between what is physically plausible and what may be the product of perception or coincidence. Skepticism ensures that investigation remains grounded in evidence and avoids conclusions based solely on speculation. Another factor to consider is secrecy and classification. Some military operations, experimental aircraft, or surveillance programs are not publicly disclosed. Observers may record phenomena without knowledge of these projects, resulting in reports of unusual objects. Again, these do not suggest alien origin, but they highlight gaps in available information. Science also provides tools for understanding long-term patterns. By compiling reports, analyzing environmental conditions, and comparing data across locations and decades, researchers can identify correlations and explanations. For instance, triangular lights reported in multiple countries often coincide with military training areas, suggesting human activity rather than extraterrestrial craft. Similarly, atmospheric optics explain many bright, static, or moving lights previously deemed anomalous. Ultimately, the role of science and skepticism is not to deny the unknown, but to define it. The unexplained is acknowledged, but it is framed in terms of evidence and probability rather than sensationalism. This approach allows researchers to maintain objectivity while exploring phenomena that challenge conventional understanding. Through scientific study, we learn not only about the sky, but about human perception, environmental phenomena, and the ways culture shapes interpretation. The persistence of unexplained sightings does not prove aliens exist, but it does demonstrate that there are still limits to our observation and comprehension. By combining careful observation, measurement, and critical analysis, science provides the most reliable means of exploring the mysteries that continue to appear above us. In this balance between evidence and uncertainty, skepticism becomes a tool, not a barrier. It allows us to respect what is observed while avoiding premature conclusions, maintaining a clear distinction between what is known, what is probable, and what remains uncertain. Beyond Earth's atmosphere lies a universe so vast that the human mind struggles to comprehend its scale. Billions of galaxies, each containing billions of stars, offer countless opportunities for planets to exist. From a statistical perspective, the question of life beyond our planet is not one of possibility, but of probability. One way scientists have approached this question is through the Drake equation, formulated in 1961 by astronomer Frank Drake. This equation estimates the number of technologically advanced civilizations in our galaxy based on factors such as star formation rates, the fraction of stars with planets, the number of planets that could support life, and the likelihood that life evolves intelligence. While many of these factors remain uncertain, the equation illustrates the potential for life elsewhere without asserting its existence on Earth. Modern astronomy has confirmed thousands of exoplanets, planets orbiting stars beyond our sun. Some are located in the so-called habitable zone, where temperatures could allow liquid water to exist. Others exhibit characteristics that may support the development of complex chemistry. These discoveries expand our understanding of where life could arise, yet they provide no evidence that extraterrestrial beings have visited Earth. Efforts such as SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, focus on detecting signals or patterns that may indicate the presence of intelligent life. Despite decades of listening to radio waves and analyzing data, no verified communication has been detected. This does not rule out life elsewhere, but it emphasizes the challenge of identifying signs of intelligence across the immense distances of space. it is important to differentiate between possibility and proof. The vastness of the cosmos implies that life could exist elsewhere, but no observation, radar detection, or eyewitness account on Earth has confirmed extraterrestrial visitation. Objects observed in our skies remain unidentified because of limits in data, not because they represent alien spacecraft. The cosmic perspective also provides context for the UFO phenomenon. Throughout history, humans have projected meaning onto what they do not understand, whether interpreting celestial omens in ancient times or observing unexplained lights today. This does not diminish the importance of observation. Rather, it situates reports within a broader understanding of human experience and the limitations of perception. Exploring the possibility of life elsewhere encourages reflection on our place in the universe. It invites humility in the face of vast distances, timescales, and unknown physical conditions. Even as technology improves and space exploration expands, questions remain. Are there forms of life we cannot detect? Are there civilizations so distant that contact is physically impossible? These questions are not speculative in a sensational sense. They are natural inquiries based on evidence and probability. At the same time, the study of Earth's skies reminds us that the unknown often appears closer to home. Unexplained aerial phenomena, while intriguing, must be analyzed with rigorous methodology. They offer insight into atmospheric conditions, observational limitations, and human cognition rather than serving as proof of extraterrestrial presence. By combining the cosmic perspective with careful study of the skies, we can appreciate both the immensity of the universe and the subtle mysteries that appear above us. The search for understanding is ongoing. The universe is vast, largely unobserved, and filled with possibilities, but the question of whether we are alone remains open, unanswered, and worthy of patient inquiry. In this way, curiosity about life elsewhere complements the scientific study of unidentified aerial phenomena. It encourages observation without presumption, skepticism without dismissal, and reflection without conclusion. It is a reminder that both the cosmos and the skies above Earth continue to challenge our understanding, inspiring careful investigation rather than certainty. As night falls and the world grows quiet once again, we are left with questions that have persisted for centuries. Unexplained lights, shapes, and movements in the sky continue to challenge understanding, while the vast universe beyond reminds us of how little we truly know. UFOs, or unidentified aerial phenomena, are not proof of extraterrestrial life. They are evidence of observation, perception, and the limits of knowledge. They are a record of human curiosity, the urge to document, and the desire to understand the unknown. Even when explanations exist, the phenomenon retains its power to intrigue and inspire, precisely because it exists at the intersection of what is seen and what is understood. Throughout history, from cave paintings to medieval chronicles, from Roswell to modern pilot reports, humans have looked upward with wonder and concern. Each observation tells a story not only of the sky itself, but of the culture, knowledge, and expectations of the observer. The unexplained becomes a mirror reflecting both our technological progress and our enduring curiosity. Scientific investigation, rigorous analysis, and skepticism provide clarity where possible, but they also respect the boundaries of uncertainty. To acknowledge the unknown is not to claim its nature. It is to recognize the limitations of perception and data, and to maintain a careful, reasoned approach. Perhaps the most important lesson lies not in what has been observed, but in how humans respond to mystery. We seek explanations, test theories, and document patterns. We record, study, and reflect. We do not always find answers, and yet the act of looking, questioning, and observing continues. The skies above remain vast, the stars distant, and the universe immense. There are questions without answers, phenomena without confirmation, and mysteries that endure despite centuries of observation. In this silence, we find both humility and wonder, a reminder that some truths are beyond immediate comprehension, and that the pursuit of knowledge is as valuable as the knowledge itself. As you watch or listen quietly at night, the sky stretches above, timeless and indifferent. What remains unidentified is not only a challenge for scientists, but a testament to human curiosity, imagination, and the unending desire to explore the unknown. The mystery remains. And in that mystery, we are invited to observe, to reflect, and to continue looking upward. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. Let me know what topics you'd like to see in future videos.